Hi everyone. So it's a Wednesday night. Welcome again to my podcast slash live stream. So this is once again where I talk about everything. I talk about weird things, boring things, mundane things, exciting things, just anything really. As long as nasa mood ako. Okay, which is so Wednesday night. So I'm actually as in pinagsisisihan ko na to na I said 9 p.m. kasi antok na ako. It's been a long day. It's been a hectic past few weeks at work. So right now, I'm actually doing these podcasts and live streams to de-stress myself. So, but apparently my brand is talking about ghosts and haunted things and scary things. So I don't think that this is actually stress relieving. When I talk about these things, it actually makes me more stressful. Like recently, people are like, "Oh yeah, like can you review Filipino horror movies or can you talk about more Korean horror movies?" And I'm like, "Guys, is that my brand now?" Also, I was supposed to start this at 7 p.m. But then aliw kasi so as usual, so I'm once again fresh out of the bath, so I just did my skincare. So I was supposed to do it at 7 p.m. and I'm like, let's give them a break. Let's not do something. Let's do a podcast without me like, you know, fucking up with my skincare. Now, so also I was my attention has been caught recently with some there's a documentary in YouTube where they talk about crimes in the 1800s and 1700s in France in Paris, or is it Paris, or do we say it Paris like very pretentiously? But anyway, so one of the things that they were talking about is how Antonio Luna murdered his wife. So I was like, oh, this is fascinating. So Antonio Luna, yes, brother to no, wait, is it Antonio Luna? Who was basta yung brother ni General Luna. So he was a painter, right? And he killed his wife, and it was apparently a very salacious crime. And it's really funny because I just started it, pero my attention was half on my work, so I wasn't really able to watch it that much. So, but it's super interesting, and it coincides with something that my friend wants to do, because I keep talking about ghost stories, right? Or creepy stuff. They're like, let's do something like BuzzFeed Unsolved, where we talk about Filipino murder mysteries or Filipino crimes and or Filipino ghost stories. And then I'm like, dude, I really just do this for fun. I mean, these videos are not even edited. So but it's something that my friends are pretty excited about, but I'll talk about whatever. So for today, so we're gonna talk about, or one of the thing, or some sorry, 9 p.m. brain. 9 p.m. brain for me is your 3 a.m. brain. So I usually don't stay awake at this hour. I'm usually asleep at 6 p.m. or 7 a.m. But anyway, so what we're going to be talking about today is like travel ghost stories. So I know that a lot of you guys love traveling. I know that most of you guys actually miss traveling with the quarantine period. So I know that there are a lot of you guys that have visited, visited towns across the country, or some of you guys have also gone outside of the country, gone to different places, gone to different countries, etc. So when you travel, usually, of course, the things that usually come to mind is like, the change of scenery, something new, something exciting. So it's very rare that you actually go to, you actually get involved in really creepy situations. But I have a fair share. For some weird reason, I have my fair share of ghost stories when it comes to traveling. Either me or my family or my friends. So since tonight it's 9 p.m. at as you can see sa mata ko, inaantok na ako. So I'll probably just tell three of the most memorable travel ghost stories that I've had, or has been told to me by the people that I know. One of the ghost stories I've experienced firsthand. The other one was something that happened to members of my family, and then there's another one that was told to me secondhand by my friends, and also by several of my friends. Kasi parang I have several friends that are into mountaineering. So this is they've always parang palagi nilang nakukwento yon. So the first story that I have happened actually to my family members. So it happened to my grandmother and my mom, and I think ang kasama nila doon was a family friend and a second cousin, or one of our relatives. So the first story happens in Mindanao. So just a brief background on before I tell you the whole story. So our family used to have a business where we were printing graphics, stickers, etc. So we don't have that business right now. But when we had that before, that business had my grandmother and my mom and my aunts and uncles traveling around the country. So one of the biggest markets that they had for that business is Mindanao. So every 2 years, or every other year, every 2-3 years or so, they would pack their bags and go to Mindanao. Ngayon, when they travel to Mindanao, it's not by plane. So what they do is that since they have a lot of cargo, I think they have a lot of boxes with them. So they don't go by plane. So what they usually do is that they travel by super ferry. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with super ferry. Dati super ferry pa siya, pero I think ngayon WGNA, ay dati Aboitiz ata siya, tas ngayon WGNA na, kasi di ba parang yung A in WGNA stands for Aboitiz, right? But dati Aboitiz super ferry pa siya. So they take that from Manila, tapos magpuport or dadaong yung barko. Dadaong yung barko. Tama ba yung sinasabi ko, daong? Or tama. Dadaong yung, I don't know if for some weird reason alam ko dadaong, tama. My Filipino is correct. So, dadaong yung barko sa Cagayan de Oro. Bababa sila doon. Sorry. Not Cagayan de Oro. Dadaong yung barko sa Zamboanga. Bababa sila doon. They'd stay in Jensan and then travel by land all around Mindanao. So, so they'd start their travel kasi the reason why they do this is that bear in mind that this story happens mid-90s, early 90s. So during that time, wala pang SM sa Mindanao. So if you guys are from Mindanao, or if you ever been to Mindanao, or if you grew up in Mindanao, or in your childhood, if you were born in the 80s and for some weird reason napadpad kayo sa Mindanao in the early 90s or mid-90s, you would know na during that time, wala pang SM doon. I think ang SM dumating lang mga early 2000s, mga late 1990s. Pero the early years, wala pang SM. So, Gaisano ang mall sa Mindanao. So, if you guys are familiar with that, good. If you guys don't know what Gaisano Mall is, look for Metro Mall, yung mall sa town center at saka yung mall sa market. Those are Gaisano malls. The reason why they're called Metro malls is it's Metro Gaisano actually. But anyway, So anyway, so Gaisano was one of our clients. And what my family did was that they travel by land from one Gaisano mall to another. Starting from Cagayan de Oro, they iikutin nila yung Mindanao, and then their last point would be, ay hindi, starting from Zamboanga. Bakit Cagayan de Oro ka ng Cagayan de Oro? So starting from Zamboanga, they'd go around Mindanao. Tapos yung last trip nila is Cagayan de Oro, and then from Cagayan de Oro, they'd take the super ferry back to Manila. So, Mindanao is a huge, well, it's huge, it's bigger than Luzon, but it's a very big island, and you can actually travel from one point to another via highways. So, syempre, again, early 90s, mid 90s to, diba? So, the thing about, if you've also seen the map of Mindanao, you would see that the entire Mindanao is crisscrossed by highways. So, but the thing about Mindanao back then is that between cities, so madaming highways, so there are proper roads and everything. So, between one city to another, or between one town to another, is just farmland, or forest, or mountain, or just land. So, uso, probinsyang-probinsya pa siya noon dati. So, there would be cities like Jensan, or General Santos City, or Davao, or Cagayan de Oro. But between those cities, the towns are usually clustered. Talagang probinsya lang. Talagang clustered yung mga bahay, tas sila lang yon. Tas for the next 50 miles or so, lang, mga palayan or taniman or forests yung dadaanan nyo. So, the thing about that, hindi din uso yung mga Eurotel dati noon. So, whenever my grandmother and my mom, and if my uncle or aunt was with them as well, every time they traveled to Mindanao, usually nakikitulog sila sa mga bahay ng mga relatives, or pag major city na, it's usually a hotel kung wala silang relatives doon. So what happens is that sometimes, kasi syempre malaki ang Mindanao, diba? So sometimes you'd get caught yung while traveling, maabutan talaga kayo sa daan, diba? Usually pag nasa daan kayo sa Mindanao, as in maabutan talaga kayo literal na nasa daan, walang city, walang bahay sa tabi, daan. So, imagine niyo, ito yung scenario. So, it happened na, yun yung nangyari sa grandmother ko at sa mom ko. Naabutan sila sa daan, in between towns. So, since, wala silang bayan, so, in between towns yun kasi parang 5 to 8 hours in between towns eh. So, malayo talaga. So, gabi na nun, inabutan sila ng gabi. Tapos, the next town was like 2 or 3 hours away. So, no choice sila. Mga I think, mga past midnight na, or they were driving until 11 or 12, tas basta madilim na talaga. So, naabutan sila. So, ito yung scenario niya. So, imagine niyo concrete na highway, di ba? Concrete na highway. Tapos, on one side, taniman. Tapos yung isang side, puro damo. So, one side, puro taniman. So, I think yung tanim pa nga is mais or tubo. So, mataas yun, diba? So, lagpas tao. Other side is damo, which is also lagpas tao. So, yun yung scenario. Madilim. The lights on the road are at least, I think, 50 to 75 feet apart. So, if you've ever... Hi, Shandy. Pa-shoutout. Sorry. Shandy says, hi, Viva, pa-shoutout naman dyan. Okay. Hello, Shandy. Congratulations on your baby, by the way. So, anyway. So, again, yun yung scenario. So, it's an empty road. Wala halos dumadaan. Wala na silang kasabay. Kasi, bear in mind that this is either 11 p.m., 12 midnight, 1 a.m., or 2 a.m. So, madilim na talaga. So, empty road. Yung lights ng highway are like 50 to 75 feet apart each. Some of the lights are not working as well. One side of the road, taniman. Either, as sa pagkakadescribe ng lola ko, it's either tubo or mais. Another side of the road is really, really tall grass. So, pareho na lagpas tao. Okay, hi Care. Pa-shoutout daw si Dr. Rhaegar. My favorite cat, my favorite poging cat na minsan Gemons. Hi Dr. Rhaegar, sana inadopt na lang kita. But anyway, so going back to my story. So yun sila. So they had no choice. So they had to they can't drive the entire night kasi pagod na sila. They've been driving the whole day, diba? So what they did was that they parked on one side of the road. Nakaano sila hindi L300 eh. Ano ba yung parang bumubukas L500? Ano ba yun? Teka nga, L500 ba? Or L300 yung van, diba? So, L5... No, L400, L200. L300 yung van eh. At, hindi, tama, L300, sorry. Naka-L300 sila. So, may driver, tapos yung kamag-anak namin sa harapan, tapos my grandmother and my mom, nasa likod sila. So what they did was like, no choice sila. So gitna sila ng highway, diba? Nag-park sila sa tabi, and then, pinatay nila yung makina, natulog sila, kung nasan. So ginawa nila, yung driver, natulog siya dun sa driver's side, yung kamag-anak namin, sa tabi niya, natulog na, nakaupo lang sila doon. So, nilak nila yung mga pinto, tulog sila. Tapos, yung mom ko at saka yung lola ko, doon sila sa likod. Since L300 siya, di ba pahaba yun, di ba? So, may parang bench. Yun yung kama nila. So, tulog na sila. So, walang ilaw talaga. As in, literally, walang ilaw. May malayong light lang. Pero, the rest of the light is just the moon. So, hindi ko alam kung na-experience nyo na walang ilaw, na napunta kayo sa probinsya, tapos walang ilaw, tapos yung liwanag na lang ng buwan, yung ilaw nyo, pero ang liwanag ng buwan, pero ang creepy ng liwanag niya, kasi lahat ng paligid nyo, either kulay blue or kulay gray. Hindi ko pa alam kung na-experience niya yan, baka forever na kayo nakatira sa Manila. Pero experience ko na yan. At sobrang creepy niya. So, yun yung situation. So, parang maliwanag, pero everything is gray or parang bluish black. Dahil light lang nung buwan yung meron sila. So, syempre, wala pa silang cellphone noon. Kasi nga, early 90s, mid-90s. So, no cellphone. So, wala silang pampailaw. Ang meron lang sila is sa glove compartment, parang may flashlight lang yata. Yun lang yung ilaw talaga nila. So anyway, natutulog na sila, kasagsagan na ng tulog nila. Biglang, may kumalampag dun sa sasakyan nila. Nagulat silang lahat, diba? Kasi may kumakalampag dun sa may, sa may pinto ng L300 eh. Yung pinto sa likod hindi yung sa may driver side. So, may kumalampag. So, nagulat silang lahat, di ba? So, mga nagkaroon pa ng presence of mind yung mama ko na tignan yung relo niya. So, yung pagtingin niya sa relo niya, mga 2 or 3 a.m. yun. So, talagang hating gabi talaga. So, may kumakalampag dun sa pinto. Tapos, nagulat sila, nagkatinginan silang lahat. Parang yun, di ba? Kasi nasa gitna sila ng kawalan. Walang bahay sa tabi. At least, wala silang nakikitang bahay. Wala namang dumadaang sasakyan. Sila lang yun nandun. Kaya gumaganon talaga. As in, balibag talaga. As in, may gumaganon talaga dun sa door ng L300, right? So, naglakas loob yung mama ko na buksan yung pinto ng L300. So, pagbukas niya, may nakita siyang bata na nakatayo sa labas ng L300 van. Tapos, bata, as in literally 5 or 6 years old na bata, nakapaa, nakatingin sa mami ko, nakatingin dun sa pinto ng L300 van. Tapos, pagbukas ng mami ko, syempre nagulat siya, 'di ba? May bata, may literal na bata out of nowhere. So sabi ng mami ko, parang nagulat siya. Bigla niyang na-blur na parang hindi siya nakapagsalita actually kasi nagulat siya na-shock siya parang what the hell, 'di ba? Yung bata, tinignan siya, tinanong siya in Bisaya Bisaya ba o Waray? Parang gano'n. Parang basta hindi Tagalog. Tinanong siya, bakit kayo nandyan? Tinanong siya. Tapos parang, na-stress yung mommy ko kasi parang siya, napaisip siya, teka, ikaw ba? Tapos tinanong niya yung bata, Tagalog naman, ikaw, anong ginagawa mo dyan? Gumanon siya dun sa bata, tapos yung bata, tinignan siya uli, parang, bakit kayo nandito? Tinanong siya uli, nung bata, tapos, nahimasmasan na yung kamag-anak namin, ginawa niya, as in, parang may sinabi siya in Bisaya na parang, hindi, aalis na kami dito. Gumanon siya. So, what they did was that, sinabi ng relative namin na to close the door, and then, they went away. Like, as in, humarurot sila paalis doon. Afterwards, parang parang nag-drive sila until umaga. Tapos, takot na takot yung kamag-anak namin. Tapos parang yung mommy ko parang hindi pa umaabot sa kanya yung takot eh. Yung inaabot sa kanya is yung parang alam mo yung sobrang weirded out ka na parang what the hell. So tinatanong nila parang after nung mga umaga na nagkumain na sila, sinabi nung kamag-anak kailangan nilang umalis doon kasi yung bata hindi daw tao yun. So, kasi naabutan sila sa isang lugar na walang bahay, walang tao. So, yung bata is most likely something that lives there and it doesn't want them there. So, kung nagstay pa sila doon, maaaring may nangyari na sa kanilang masama. So, yung pagkaka-describe talaga nila doon sa parang bata lang na normal, na naka-t-shirt, naka-shorts, pero nakapaa. Sa gitna ng highway, kinatok yung van nila, tapos tinanong sila, anong ginagawa niyo dyan? Diba? So, doon na lang inabutan ng takot yung mommy ko at yung lola ko, diba? So, while you're traveling, so sabi nila, hanggang ngayon even when my grandmother passed away 2 years ago, she still remembers that story na kinukwento pa rin niya yun every now and then. And every time that she hears someone traveling to Mindanao, ang palagi niyang advice is, basta't pag hindi ka taga doon, wag kang magsistay sa mga lugar na walang tao, or wag kang kakausap ng mga taong hindi mo kakilala, lalo na sa mga lugar na walang tao. So, yun yung palagi niyang advice. Okay? So, if ever you're traveling, kasi, well, Manila, madaming mga lugar sa Manila na, all over the Philippines na parang hindi pa halos natatauhan, konti pa lang yung mga population. So, hindi sa amin sa mga liblib na lugar. And, a lot of people still believe that there are things that are not really ghosts, pero these are things that live there and you can't really explain what they are. Pero pag sinabi nila na taga doon sila, at pag sinabi na nilang umalis ka doon, you better follow what they're saying. Kasi, dude, you're not you might not just make it out alive. So, it's a good thing that, nagkaroon na sila ng presence of mind to get out of there. But when you're traveling in Mindanao, and you're in between towns, don't sleep beside the road. Kasi baka, hindi nyo alam, baka yung lugar na tinutulugan nyo, may iba nang nakatira doon. And ayaw nila ng tao. Okay. So, that's my first story. Okay. This second story is happened to me naman. So, I'm the one that experienced this story. This time, it's not in Mindanao. So, akyat na tayo. So, this time, this story happened in the Visayas. This happened to me probably mga 5, 8 years ago. Ilang years na ba ako nasa AMS? 7. So, mga 8 or 9 years ago. So, because I was still in my previous company when this happened. I was traveling with friends. But anyway, yung mga tao parang, gosh, Viva, kinikilabutan na ako. Well, damay-damay na. So, anyway, so yung second story na to, so this happened when we were on a vacation. So, probably itatag ko si Kini, at saka sila Mara, at saka sila Mitch, at saka si MJ, kasi sila yung mga kasama ko. They were my, 3 of them were my roommates, 1 of them was my coworker. So, parang, it was decided that we'd all travel together for a weekend, for a long weekend, from, ang mangyayari is, we would fly to Bacolod. Kami, parang dalawa, our traveling group was split into 2. So, nauna kaming dalawa nung ako at saka ng office mate ko. Tapos, susunod yung 3 kong roommates. So, the idea was that, ang mangyayari, we'd fly to Bacolod. Tapos, since mauuna kami ng isang gabi, I think, isang gabi. Nauna kami ng isang gabi kasi iba yung flight namin. So, nauna kami sa Bacolod. So, from Bacolod, magla-land travel kami papunta ng Boracay. So, from one end to another. So, Bacolod, Iloilo, Boracay. Yun yung itinerary namin. So, what happened was that, nauna kami. So, we landed in Bacolod. So, we had fun kasi it's a nice city. I don't know kung nauna kami ng isang gabi or 2 gabi. Basta nauna kami. So, we landed in Bacolod. We had a good experience kasi the food was really good. The food was really good. As nag-sightseeing kami. We took a lot of pictures. So, sobrang, ayos niya. Ngayon, this is where it gets super hazy. Kasi it happened 8 or 9 years ago. So, I don't know kung during that time, nag-meet na kami with my other friends or kaming dalawa pa rin nung ka-office mate ko nasa Bacolod. Anyway, we stayed in this hotel. So, as you might know, Bacolod is really old. Old. It's one of the, it's not a new city. Bacolod has been around since 1700s or 1800s. Kasi, Bacolod is popular being one of the sugar, diba? Yung mga sugar plantations niya. So, actually, ito pala nangyari kung bakit popular. So, una, parang okay na yung Bacolod kasi nga, maganda yung lupa niya to grow sugarcane, diba? Tubo, sugar. Which is, back then, was still pretty expensive. Now, pero, nag-boom talaga yung Bacolod nung 1800s kasi ang nangyari, so a little bit of history, world history na. So during that time, the main sugar plantations were in the West Indies. The West Indies are the islands below the United States. So yun yung mga Jamaica, Haiti, Cuba, yung mga islands na yun, sa mga Bahamas, kanyan. So all the sugar plantations were there, and the people that owned the plantations were called the sugar barons. So, they're very rich and yumaman sila because of growing and selling sugar. Nung mga 1800s na, nagkakagulo na sa part ng world na yon. So, what the sugar barons did was that they packed up their bags and a lot of them went to the Philippines. Specifically, in the area where specifically in the area where Bacolod is now. So in that area, so that's the reason why, kung mapapansin nyo, yung mga Ilonggo, puro mestizo, diba? May mga parang hindi yung may a lot of them kasi, yung families nila may lahi na. Kasi a lot of the sugar barons that came here, or at least yung mga tao that wanted to make their fortunes in sugar. They were either Belgians, they were French, they were, aside from the Spanish Belgians, French, English, mga ganyan. So, mga ano talaga, mga puti talaga. So, that's the reason why a lot of the big or old or rich families in Bacolod are mestizo. Kasi most of their ancestors are actually like pure blood Caucasians. So, fun fact there. But anyway, so the point there is Bacolod is a very very old city, and a lot of places there are old as well. So the hotel that we stayed in is called the Sugarland Hotel. Okay? Now, so I was trying to look up history of this hotel na nahirapan ako kasi, well, there isn't a lot of articles about it online. So I really had to, like, kanina when I was doing my skincare, nag-click around ako on the internet trying to look for history. So anyway, the Sugarland Hotel is outside of the city proper. Di ba yung city proper, if you guys have ever been to Bacolod, the city proper is always Lacson, di ba? Yung area ng Lacson Boulevard. So, Sugarland is a little bit off. Parang hindi siya dun sa main. Pero pag diniretso mo yung Lacson, tapos kumanan ka ng, ano yun, street na yun? Basta may maliit na street na, ayun, Luzuriaga Street. Kumanan ka, pagkanan mo, diretso ka uli, yun na yung mahabang Araneta Avenue. Actually, yung Araneta Avenue, parang kasing haba lang niya yung Lacson. So, Araneta, Lacson, usually, so obviously, the main roads in Bacolod are named after their big families. Okay? Aranetas, Lacsons, etc. But anyway, so the Sugarland Hotel is along Araneta Avenue. It's an old hotel. So, it was the earliest article or the earliest mention in an article that I could find about this hotel is that this hotel was originally called Sampaguita Hotel, and it was owned by Jose P. Juan, by the P. Juan family. So you're like, okay, so sino yung mga P. Juan? So the P. Juan family was actually a very rich family. Bacolod has a lot of rich families, but P. Juan is one of the rich families, and one of their more famous family members is Aurora P. Juan, who was the Miss International in 1970. Miss International Philippines in 1970. Actually, hindi. Siya yung Miss International 1970. Siya yung title holder. And she is also famous kasi siya yung unang asawa ni Thomas Manotoc, who is the father of Mavis and TJ Manotoc, who remarried again. And of course, alam natin ang famous second wife niya, who is Amy Marcos, kaya nga, di ba, si Borgie Manotoc. Hindi ko alam na si TJ Manotoc at Borgie Manotoc pala iba ang nanay. But anyway, another fun fact that you probably didn't want to hear. But anyway, so they were owned by the P. Juan family. I think it was built based dun sa mga nag-gather up ko kasi guys, ang hirap talaga hanapin yung history ng hotel na to. So, the hotel was already built before the 1970s, parang mid-1960s, early 1960s, or it could probably be older than that kasi iba pa yung pangalan niya. Pangalan pa niya dati, Sampaguita Hotel. So, imagine mo kung gano'n na siya katanda, okay? So, it was built, tapos nung 1973, it was sold in a public auction. Tapos, it was, parang napanalunan siya ni Felix Yusay. So, Felix Yusay is obviously a member of the Yusay clan, which is another rich family in Bacolod. Like, ang daming yayaman na tao sa Bacolod, I swear. So, silang dalawa, Bacolod at Cebu, nagtatalo lang sila. Sila lang yung mga, sila yung mga, may mga matatandang mayayamang mga pamilya. But anyway, so, from 1973 onwards, naging Sugarland Hotel na siya. Sugarland because, well, Bacolod is famous for its sugar plantations, kaya Sugarland Hotel. And it actually was very famous. It hosted a lot of dignitaries and it had really famous visitors like Jimmy Carter. Kung kilala niyo si Jimmy Carter, siya ang dating president ng United States. And some of the more recent ones are like sila Gloria Macapagal-Arroyo, etc. So it's a very famous hotel. But anyway, so it's old now. So when we stayed there, maganda siya. Maganda siyang hotel kasi yung pagkakagawa niya is pahaba. Pa-length. Pag ganun, pahaba. Maganda siya, pero alam mong matanda na siya. As in, pag pumasok ka, may some parts na they tried to remodel it to become more modern, like yung pool area, yung lobby, etc. Pero the actual rooms and hotel itself, alam mong luma na siya. As in, alam mong luma na siya. So, as in, yung may staircase doon na mukhang luma na, may mga mirrors yung walls. So, may parts na talagang alam mong, yep, 1960s, 1970s, this shit is old. Kasi talagang as in ang weird. Kasi may part doon na parang super ultra modern, na parang redecorated, tas maganda, and modern yung furniture. Tas biglang may part ng hotel na parang, fuck, it's old. Ganun talaga. Feeling ko talaga, I could actually smell na luma na yung hotel. But anyway, but it's a nice hotel. Pero, hindi ko lang, as in ngayon ko lang napansin na back then, parang it gave off these Overlook Hotel vibes. So, if you guys have watched The Shining, you know what I'm talking about. So, parang alam yung lumang hotel na kinda creepy and you kinda don't feel good about it but you don't know why. So, parang ganun yung vibe niya. Pero of course, during that time, I was traveling, I was enjoying the new sights, the food in Bacolod was really good. So, parang, syempre, hindi ko na maiintindihan yun, diba? So, anyway, stay na kami dun. I think this was the second night, actually, kasi the first night was pretty okay. The second night, was where things got a little bit weird. So, ayun, natandaan ko na siya. Sorry, 8-9 years ago na talaga to. Hindi ko na alam yung timeline. So, during the first night, okay pa kami. We went around town. We traveled around. We went sightseeing. Tapos, we went back to the hotel. We slept. Nothing happened naman. Next night is, during that day, dumating na yung mga kasama namin. Yung three ko na roommate. So, dumating na sila. So, we went around with them as well, kumain kami, ganyan. And then, we went back to stay one more night in the hotel. Kasi, after that night, magla-land travel na kami papuntang Iloilo and then papuntang Boracay. So, anyway. So, during that second night, okay na. So, nag-iimpake na kami, etc. Ganyan. So, during that night, kasi ang setup ng room is a typical deluxe hotel room. So, ang mga deluxe hotel room is 2 beds, diba? So, 2 queen size? Ano ba yung bed na medyo maliit sa queen size pero hindi twin size? Parang ganon. Parang medyo malaki siya. So, 2 bed. So, if you're ever familiar with layouts of hotel rooms, so, diba, pagbukas mo ng pinto, hindi mo siya makikita kagad yung mga kama, diba? So, parang may maliit na hallway. Usually, pagbukas mo ng pinto, the bathroom is always either on the left or the right. Right? If you guys are familiar with hotels. Tapos, bathroom. Tapos, pag naglakad ka ng konti dun sa hallway, bubukas na yung room, makikita mo na yung mga kama. Usually, tagu sila from the door. Diba? Parang, may maliit na hallway, tapos bigla siyang lalaki. Tapos, yun na yung buong room. So, ganun yung setup niya. So, that night, okay na, naligo na kami, nag-impake na kami, kasi nga, the next day, alis na kami. So, 2 beds, yung bed ko is pinakamalayo dun sa door, nearest the wall. My co-worker's bed was nearest the door. So, 2 beds, tas nasa harapan namin is yung TV. Tapos, on the right-hand side, yung maliit na hallway, papunta sa door. So, tulog na kami. Walang ganyan. So, ang nangyari is, nanaginip ako nangyari is, alam mo yung nanaginip, so dun sa panaginip ko is, I saw a woman standing on one corner of the room, looking at my coworker. Alam mo yung mga panaginip, nananaginip, alam mong nananaginip ka siya. Kinikilabutan ako kasi naalala ko pa talaga siya. So, dun sa panaginip na yun, there was a woman in black, mahaba yung buhok niya, almost obscuring her face. Tago na yung face niya, malaba yung buhok niya. Shit, kinikilabutan talaga ako, guys. So, anyway, ang light lang sa kwarto nun is yung lamp. 'Di ba yung pag sa mga hotel may desk lamp? So, the light in that room was that desk lamp lang. So, in my dream, nakahiga ako sa kama, hindi ako makakilos. I was just lying on the bed, parang paralyzed ako. And then, I saw this woman in black at the corner of the room, staring at my roommate. Shit, kinikilabutan na talaga ako, guys. Naalala ko lang siya. Tapos, so ako, parang siya, tinititigan niya yung roommate ko. So ako, I was struggling. Kasi natatakot na ako eh. Kasi nakatingin lang siya dun sa roommate ko. Diba? So, I struggled. Dun sa dream ko na yon, I kept struggling until I was able to move. And parang feeling ko, parang dun sa panaginip ko na yon, nagising ako. Tapos, ginawa ko, tumalon ako dun sa, hindi man tumalon, pero parang, in my panic, ginawa ko, pumunta ako dun sa kama nung ka-office mate ko. Tapos, tinabihan ko siya. So, parang siya, nagising na ganon. Tapos, parang nakahiga pa rin siya. Tapos, parang nakatalikod kasi siya nakatapat siya, nakaside siya, nakatalikod siya, nakatapat siya dun sa wall niya, sa side yung wall sa side niya. Nakatalikod siya. Tapos, parang, alam mo yung parang inaantok pa lang na parang, ba't ka lumipat ng kama? Ba't mo ako tinabihan? So, parang ako, hindi kasi, parang, alam mo yun, I just made this stupid ass excuse na kasi parang, kasi hindi ako sanay matulog mag-isa, which is complete bullshit, kasi second night na namin yun, at nakatulog na ako nang sa kama ko na mag-isa. But anyways, I just completely made up this bullshit story na parang, hindi ako makatulog kasi naninibago ako, hindi ako matulog mag-isa. Tapos, yung friend ko, parang nag-stretch siya, tapos umikot siya. Tapos nung pag-ikot niya, yung mukha na, yung babae na nakatingin sa kanya, siya na yun, yung katabi ko. And I screamed. I screamed from the bed, as apparently, panaginip pala uli yun. So parang, kala ko, gising na ako, nananaginip pa rin pala ako uli. Nagising ako uli. So, nagulat na siya. Kasi, parang, napasigaw ako eh. Naggising na yung roommate ko. Tapos, parang yung roommate ko, anong nangyayari sa'yo? Sabi ko, binangungot ako. Tapos, parang siya, okay, ganyan. So, sabi ko, so, I tried sleeping again. But the problem is, the entire night, there was a shadow in the corner of the room na ayoko talagang tignan kasi feeling ko talaga, yun talaga. As in, there was someone watching me from that corner of the room. As in, hindi ko masabi sa roommate ko yun. Kasi ayoko rin siyang takutin eh. Kasi syempre, di ba, pag natakot na siya, tatakutan kami. But at the same time, kung sinabi ko yun, at least, di ba, binuksan na niya yung ilaw. Pero ginawa ko kasi buong gabi, tiniis ko. As in, literally, nakahiga lang ako. Hindi ko makagalaw yung ulo ko. Kasi takot na ako. Kasi nangangatog talaga ako. Kasi literally, sobrang antok na ako. Pero I did not want to dare close my eyes kasi there was literally a shadow of a person standing on one corner of the room just looking at me. So, I'm like, puyat ako. Nagising ako noon, sobrang sama ng pakiramdam ko. Actually, hindi ako nagising, sorry. Hindi ako nagising. As in, dumating yung morning, ang sama ng pakiramdam ko kasi wala akong tulog, ganyan. And, kinuwento ko yun sa mga ka-roommates ko, na yun yung nangyari, ganyan. So, parang, this is where it gets really fuzzy. Kasi after that, I think something happened pa. But this time, it happened to my roommate na. Kasi, I'm not really sure. Kaya nga itatag ko si Mara at saka si Kini when it happened. Kasi 8 to 9 years ago na to eh. My God, time flies. Pero pagkatapos nun, nagkasakit siya. And they couldn't really explain kung ano yung sakit niya. As in, yung suka siya ng suka. From the moment that we left Bacolod up until Boracay, suka lang siya ng suka. As in, wala siyang sakit, wala siyang anything, di siya na food poison. Kasi, imposibleng food poisoning eh. Kasi everything that she ate, we also ate. Wala kaming yung parang different orders or anything like that. We ate in the same restaurants. We drank the same water. Pero suka siya ng suka. And, what happened was that she had to, may relatives kasi yung isa naming friend sa Aklan. Kasi taga Aklan, taga yung family, they had families around Boracay and that area. Parang kailangan ng so something followed my coworker from Bacolod, and it caused her to not feel really good. And the only way that it would stop is that if she leaves the island. Kasi ang sinasabi nung relative nung friend namin, hindi yun makakatawid ng tubig. As to what it was, we didn't really know. Pero after I had that experience in the hotel, like, she started getting sick and she wasn't, as in, dinala siya sa clinic or sa hospital ata sa Boracay. They didn't know what was happening to her kasi talagang suka lang sa siya. She couldn't eat anything, she couldn't put her food, parang she couldn't get any food down, as in parang water lang. And it was bad. It was really bad. But this is where my memory gets hazy kasi hindi ko na alam kung ano yung nangyari doon. Kasi I was also feeling out of sorts because of what happened. Parang there was a part there na parang pati ako nasusuka. Pero my coworker who was traveling with us, siya talaga yung, like, she felt really bad. So I don't know what, I'd probably try to remember what happened to her, pero that's what happened to me in the hotel. So the hotel is really old, so I tried to look up stories about it. So ang nakakatawa kasi I was looking kanina, actually for the longest time I tried to not remember that story kasi it was really creepy. Sobrang, as in, talagang kinikilabutan ako pag kinukwento ko sa ibang tao yun whenever I remember it. I tried to look up the hotel and any parang reviews or stories. Wala namang ghost stories actually, yung mga guests. Pero the common theme among mga reviews, I don't know kung sa Traveloka or sa TripAdvisor ko nakita yung mga review. Pero the common theme dun sa mga review is creepy. As in, creepy yung, as in, that's always the word that they use to describe that hotel. Creepy. So maybe some of them experienced something and they just didn't want to talk about it. Maybe it's just the feel of the hotel overall. Pero if ever you go to Bacolod and you find yourself staying at the Sugarland Hotel, try to keep the lights open just to make sure you don't see any shadows in the corner of your room. Right. So that is my second story. So I really promised myself na 30 minutes lang itong podcast na to. But once again, feeling ko mag-iisang oras na naman siya. My God, why do I do these things to myself? So one last story before we end this podcast and before we say goodnight. Okay, so the last story was actually something that I've heard from several people na. So if you guys, so, diba, my first story was in Mindanao, my second story was in sa Visayas. Now my last story is in Luzon. So all three, diba? Yay me. So this last story is actually a collection of stories that my friends tell me. So, if you are into mountaineering or if you have friends who are into mountaineering, you'd probably heard of this story as well. So, it's actually quite popular. Some people say it's real. Some people say it's just urban legend. But anyway, the third story that I'm going to tell is about Mount Cristobal. So, if you guys are into mountaineering, or if you know people who are into mountaineering, Cristobal is one of the more popular mountains that you can climb kasi it's very famous. So it's usually said it's usually whenever you think about Mount Banahaw, you always think about Mount Cristobal kasi nga 'di ba the folklore is that they're twin mountains, 'di ba? Mount Banahaw has the reputation of being the holy mountain. Like parang there are a lot of mystics there, and then Cristobal is sabi nila, it's more evil twin. So it's called the Devil Mountain. And they say that there are some things that lurk there that are pretty creepy. So my story is about this third story is some of the more weird things that people have told me about Cristobal Mountain. Okay? So, just as a background, so Mount Cristobal is in... So, apparently, well, the facts that I'm gonna tell you are just lifted off the internet. I'm not a mountaineer, so I know very little about climbing mountains. So, but anyway, so Mount Cristobal is located... so it's part of a mountain range, and that mountain range stretches from Dolores, Quezon, San Pablo, and Nagcarlan, Laguna. Okay, so the days required to climb its summit is around 1 to 2 days, apparently, and the most famous trail to go up that mountain is called the Dolores Trail. Okay. Now, the thing about it is that the Dolores Trail goes through several areas. It starts off with, parang there are some areas na parang patag, parang hindi naman siya patag kasi siya, well, of course, you're climbing up a freaking mountain, so hindi siya patag. So, but may mga areas doon na parang medyo relatively flat kasi sobrang negligible nung incline niya, na parang hindi mo makita yung incline, so you think na parang patag lang siya. So, parang may mga parts doon na parang mga, damo, or parang may mga shrubs lang. And then, it becomes a dense forest. Like a super dense forest. Super dense, like fairy tale type of forest na yung mga parang scenes where, a witch is going to suddenly come up behind the tree. So, the thing about it is that, since apparently yung weather doon is that it's also prone to mga fog, especially when it rains, or especially daw pag early morning or late evening. So, there are certain times, and especially dun sa trail na forest na nagfa-fog daw talaga. Lalo na pag yung malapit na sa taas. Now, the most common thing that my friends have told me in their stories is that... Oh, by the way, Mount Cristobal is apparently closed now since it was closed in 2015 because of the fire incident that happened in 2013. So, apparently, Mount Cristobal is closed until, I think, today. Basta closed pa rin siya. But anyway, going back. So, one of the more common stories that I've heard about my friends, kasi, di ba, parang when you're hiking, you're in hiking groups, so there's usually a guide or two guides that go with you, and then you have a group of people, so hiking groups, right? The most common stories that they've told me, for the people that I know that have climbed Mount Cristobal, is that there are stories about creatures or mga apparitions that happen in that mountain. And So sometimes stories of ghosts. Sometimes people see ghosts in the mountain daw. But the more common creature is something called Tumao. So Tumao ang tawag sa kanya. And I was like, nung una, nagtataka parang nung hindi ko nung una na-gets kung bakit Tumao. So apparently, kaya siya Tumao kasi something na nagpanggap na tao. Tumao. Naging tao. So, this creature, parang sometimes para siyang Bigfoot na parang hairy, scary na creature. Sometimes, it looks like an ordinary person. Sometimes looks like another hiker. Sometimes it looks like a guide. Sometimes it looks like yung mga eta na that live around the fringes of the mountain na minsan guide din. But the one common thing that that this creature has is that even if they look like, for all intents and purposes, pag nakita mo siya, kala mo hiker lang or guide lang, pero pag nilapitan mo daw, walang muka. So, yun yung nakikita. Yun yung sinasabi nilang meron sa Mount Cristobal. Now, some people are afraid kasi sabi nila, pag may nakita ka daw na Tumao, maliligaw ka tayo sa Mount Cristobal at hindi ka na makakababa. Now, one of the stories that I remember, I don't know if it was a friend that told this to me or if it was an ex-boyfriend. I forgot again. A lot of the things that people tell me, yung iba for some weird reason, there are some details of the stories that they tell me na maalala ko, pero some of the details, I completely forgot. Okay? So, anyway, sorry. Gumagalaw na yung camera. Anyway, so, according to this story, is that they were a group of hikers. So, ang setup nila is, there was a guide in front, 5 people in between, 5 hikers in between, and then another guide sa likod. Now, the guide goes, kasi paakit na sila, tapos, so malapit na sila sa summit. Tapos, so parang, alam ko kasi, na when you're hiking, di ba parang may mga parts dun sa hike nyo na mayroong set na area na magka-camp kayo, di ba? So, sabi ng guide nila, parang mga 1 or 2 hours away na lang sila dun sa camp na yon. Ano na siya biglang, hindi ko maalala kung umulan ba or hapon na, basta nagdidilim na, tas nagkakaroon na ng fog. So, the guide goes like, count off tayo para hindi tayo So, ang ginawa, since nagsiset in yung fog, nag-count off sila, so 7 sila. Tas, ang sinabi ng guide, basta be sure na palagi nyong makikita yung backpack nung nasa harapan ninyo. Okay? Pag hindi nyo na nakita yung backpack nung nasa harapan ninyo, delikado na yon. Basta kailangan palagi nyong makita yung backpack nung nasa harapan ninyo. So, anong nangyari is, so they were, Indian file sila, magkakasunod sila. So, since makapal na nga yung fog, ang ginagawa nilang palatandaan na lang is kailangan makita nila yung backpack nung nasa harapan nila. So, walking sila, nagka-count off sila, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, ganyan, 6, 7, ganyan. So, yung lalaki na pang-5 hiker, so nasa likod niya is a guide. So, siya yung huli sa mga hikers, yes, yung likod na niya is guide, yung guide na, di ba? Parang, hindi ko alam kung may kinukuha siya sa bag niya or may ginagawa siya, tas na-distract siya. Basta, parang nalingat lang siya ng konti. Hindi na niya, as in, tumingin lang siya sa baba. Parang may ginawa siguro siya. Ewan ko, nagtali siya ng sintas ng sapatos niya, may kinuha siya sa backpack niya, or may inayos siya sa bag niya. Nalingat lang siya ng konti. Pagtingin niya, wala na yung backpack sa harapan niya. So, nagpanic siya, di ba? Kasi yun yung instruction ng, yung instruction ng guide sa kanya na kailangan kita mo sa harapan mo yung backpack nung nasa harapan mo para to be sure na hindi ka mawala. Kasi nga, kumakapal na yung fog, diba? So, nagpanik siya ng konti. So, lakad-lakad siya. Tapos, may nakita siyang backpack. May yung, So, parang siya, okay, sige, kasama ko to. Diba? Parang, hindi mo naman iisipin, parang, hey, teka, sino to? Ang iisipin mo yon, diba? Pag, if you're panicking na baka mawala. So, the fact na may nakita kang backpack ulit, it's like, oh my God, buti na lang. So, ginawa niya, hindi niya, wala siya, parang, ginawa niya, sinundan niya. Automatically niya sinundan yung backpack na nakikita niya sa harapan niya kasi buhat-buhat eh. Since ang kapal ng fog, hindi niya alam kung kasama niya yon or isang guide. Basta alam niya may backpack na siyang sinusundan. So, sinundan niya. So, ganon, parang lakad-lakad siya. Tapos, umabot na ng 2 or parang nakaramdam na siya na parang antagal na nila naglalakad nung siya at nung tao sa harapan niya. So, sabi niya, parang, na yun parang, I think, either, parang magdi-dinner na ata sila, parang gano'n, parang nagugutom na siya. So, ginawa niya, tinapik niya sa harapan niya, parang, kuya, hindi tumitingin hindi lumilingon, parang, huy, malapit na ba tayo? Tinatanong na niya, kasi gutom na nga siya So, kalapit siya ng kalabit, hindi lumilingon yung lalaki. So, siya, nainip na siya. So, ginanon niya. Pag ganon niya, walang mukha yung lalaki. So, siya, takbo siya. Hindi na niya alam kung saan siya pupunta. Takbo siya. Kasi, literal, walang mukha yung lalaki. Nung hinatak niya, palikod. So, takbo siya. So, mga parang ilang oras siyang tumatakbo, tapos parang after some time, tinry niyang sundan uli yung trail kasi takot nga niya diba? Bigla kang may makitang ganun sa bundok, diba? So, after some time, either, I don't know if the story goes na parang pumirmi siya sa isang lugar or finally, nahanap siya ng mga kasama niya. Nung nahanap na siya ng kasama niya, tinatanong siya, saan ka napunta? Sabi niya, matagal niyo na ba akong hinahanap? Kasi parang feeling niya, parang ilang hours na siyang tumatakbo nang nawala. Sabi niya, parang, anong matagal? Parang nawala ka lang ng saglit. So, yung akala niya na parang ilang oras siya naglalakad kasama nung taong yun, or whatever creature that is, and also at the time na nung tumakbo siya, kasi nga, he was so scared, kala niya parang several hours na yun. Pero sabi daw nung mga kasama niya, parang nawala lang siya ng a few minutes. Tapos, yan. Tapos, ang nangyari, tinatanong siya, parang, ano yung nakita mo? Tapos, nung sinabi nga niya na, may nakita siyang tao na walang mukha. So, nagpanic yung mga guides. Kaya yung mga guides, locals kasi sila. So, sabi nila parang, okay, sige, bababa. Parang sasamahan ka na namin bumaba. Kasi, baka, diskitahan ka na. So, they were scared for him. Kasi apparently, yun nga, pag nagpakita sa yung Tumao, baka iligaw ka na, hindi ka na makababa. So, what they did was that, they made the decision to go down the mountain. So, hindi na sila tumuloy pataas. So, ginawa nilang mga guides, parang kinonvince sila na parang hindi, bababa na tayo kasi delikado na yun kasi may iba na tong nakita. They went down. So, if you're climbing sa Mount Cristobal, siguraduhin mo na yung mga kasama mo o yung guide na nagtuturo sa'yo, tao pa rin. Kasi pag naligaw ka doon, sabi nila, hindi ka na makikita. Be very careful. Okay. So, that is my third story. So, if you guys have your own travel stories, let me know. Parang, isa yan sa mga trip ko, yung I love listening to other people's stories. So, let me know. But anyway, that ends the podcast for tonight. So, mga parang, we're like an hour, 4 minutes. So, that ends the podcast for tonight. So, I hope you guys enjoyed the stories that I told you. Let me know what kind of stories you want to hear the next time. Parang nagiging brand ko na palagi ako nagkakwento ng mga nakakatakot. But if you want to hear other stories, let me know. But I hope that you enjoyed those stories that I just told you tonight. So thank you very much for listening and have a good night.